The TV went dark in the middle of a sentence. One second, a historian was explaining the Battle of Midway. The next second, the screen was black. My son-in-law stood there holding the cable in his hand like a trophy. "Enough of this garbage," he said. "In my house, we watch intelligent things." The room went silent, but the words that hurt the most didn't come from him. They came from my daughter. She stood behind him and nodded. No defense. No hesitation. Just agreement. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stood up and walked upstairs. That night, I didn't sleep, because something inside me finally woke up. And the next morning, while they were both at work, I made a phone call. One small call. The kind of call that changes everything. When they came home that evening, they were pounding on the door so hard the neighbors came outside. Some of you already know that sound. The sound of people realizing they just lost control. Before we start, tell me something. Where are you listening from tonight? Drop your city below. And if respect still matters where you live, stand with us. Now let me tell you what happened next. The cable hanging from the television felt heavier than it should have. Not because it weighed anything, but because it represented something that had been happening for 18 months. My name is Richard Halpern. I'm 68 years old, retired investigative reporter. For 42 years, I worked in Chicago exposing people who believed they were smarter than everyone else. Corrupt councilmen, fake charities, real estate fraudsters, men who thought they could cheat people and walk away smiling. Funny thing about life, you never expect the next investigation to start inside your own house. My daughter Emily moved in with her husband Tyler a year and a half ago. "Just for a few months, Dad," she said. They had lost their apartment. Rent prices had exploded. They needed help. And fathers do what fathers do. We open the door. We make space. We hope family still means something. At first it was fine, but slowly things changed. Tyler started making rules in my house. First about food, then about noise, then about the television. And that afternoon, when he ripped the cable out of the wall, I realized something important. I hadn't been living in my house. I had been surviving in someone else's. And that night I made a decision. If you've ever been underestimated, you already know how dangerous that can be. Real power moves in silence. Subscribe. I didn't react that evening. That confused Tyler more than anger would have. Men like him expect shouting. They expect emotional explosions. They know how to win those. But silence unsettles them. At dinner, Emily barely looked at me. Tyler talked about improving the intellectual environment of the house. Those were his words. Apparently, documentaries about history didn't qualify. Instead, he recommended podcasts about real estate investment. Funny, considering I had spent my entire career investigating men who talked exactly like him. After dinner, I went upstairs, closed my door, and pulled out something I hadn't used in years. A yellow legal pad. The same kind I used on every investigation. At the top of the page, I wrote one sentence. October 18th, cable incident. Then I started writing everything else I had noticed over the last 18 months. The strange mail deliveries. The credit card statements that looked slightly different. The way Tyler always answered the door before I could. Little details. Small things. But in journalism, small details are where truth hides. Around midnight, the house finally went quiet. That's when I stood up. Because sometimes the difference between being a victim and taking your life back is simply deciding to look a little closer. And that night, I started looking. At 7 inches the morning, I walked down the hallway in socks. Every floorboard in that house had a memory. My wife Margaret and I bought the place in 1984. Back when the neighborhood still had maple trees lining the street. Back when Emily was 7 years old and believed I could fix anything. Margaret passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. After that, the house got quieter. Lonelier. Which is probably why I let Tyler move in without asking many questions. Grief has a way of lowering your defenses. Tyler's office used to be my study. The door wasn't locked. That told me everything I needed to know about how he saw me. Harmless. I stepped inside. The room smelled like energy drinks and expensive cologne. His laptop sat open on the desk, still glowing. No password. I almost laughed. Some people think intelligence is loud. Real intelligence is careful. I touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. Emails, bank apps, shopping accounts. Everything still logged in. For 42 years, I investigated men who believed they were untouchable. Tyler made the same mistake every amateur makes. He left a trail, and when I started following it, the truth appeared faster than I expected. Much faster. The first thing I checked was the browser history. That's where careless people always leave the loudest footprints. Luxury clothing websites, high-end restaurants, spa bookings, a weekend resort in Napa Valley. None of those would have surprised me if the payment method hadn't caught my attention. My credit card, the one I rarely used, the one that stayed in my wallet for emergencies. I opened the statements. Month after month of charges. $850 steakhouse dinners. $1,200 shopping sprees. Electronics purchases. Hotel reservations. And every single receipt carried my name, or at least a version of it. The signature looked similar, but wrong. If you've signed your name for nearly 70 years, you notice when someone tries to imitate it. The total sat at the bottom of the screen. $46,872. I leaned back in the chair and let the number settle. For a moment, I felt something dangerous rising in my chest. Anger. But anger makes mistakes. Evidence doesn't. So I pulled out my phone, photographed everything. Statements, signatures, transaction histories. 43 photos in total. 43 quiet clicks. Each one a brick in a wall Tyler didn't know was being built around him. Some of you recognize that moment, when the truth stops being emotional and starts becoming strategic. And that's when I noticed something else. An email thread, a subject line with my name in it. And what I read next was worse than the stolen money. Much worse. The email subject read, Richard Halpern Long-Term Care Placement. For a second, I thought I had misunderstood it. Maybe it was spam. Maybe something random. But when I opened the thread, my stomach turned cold. The first message was from Tyler, dated 3 months earlier. Hello, I'm exploring options for placing an elderly relative who may be showing early signs of cognitive decline. Elderly relative. That was me. He continued. He's becoming increasingly difficult to manage at home. I stared at the words. Difficult to manage. As if I were a broken appliance. The reply came from someone named Susan Whitmore, a consultant for a memory care facility. She explained the admission process, medical evaluation, documentation of cognitive issues, and power of attorney. That part made my jaw tighten, because power of attorney meant control. Control over finances, property, everything. Then I read the next email from Tyler, and that's when the situation stopped being insulting and became criminal. He owns a house valued around $800,000, Tyler wrote. Once care placement is arranged, we would likely sell the property. Sell the property. My property. The house Margaret and I spent 30 years paying off. I sat there staring at the screen, and a strange calm settled over me. Not panic. Not rage. Just clarity. Because suddenly, this wasn't about family anymore. This was about a crime. And for 42 years, I made a living exposing crimes. At 2:18 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Tyler heading toward the bathroom. I closed the laptop instantly. The screen went dark. My heart pounded harder than it had in years. Age teaches you many things, but adrenaline still works the same. The bathroom door closed. Water started running. I slipped out of the office and back into my bedroom before he finished washing his hands. By the time he walked past my door again, I was lying in bed, phone in my hand, evidence safely stored. That night I didn't sleep much, but I didn't need to, because the investigation had already begun. By morning I had 3 backups of everything. Cloud storage, laptop copies, a small USB drive, redundancy. Any journalist will tell you the same thing. If the evidence exists in only one place, it doesn't really exist at all. At 5:30 a.m., I made my first call. A number I had known for nearly 40 years. Charles Norton, the best attorney I had ever worked with. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Richard, do you know what time it is?" "Yes," I said, "and I need your help." There was a pause. Then his voice changed. "Tell me what happened." And for the next 15 minutes, I did. Charles listened without interrupting. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. Good lawyers know when to stay quiet. When I finished explaining everything, the line stayed silent for a few seconds. Then he exhaled slowly. "Richard, if this evidence is real, it is. You're describing elder financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. That sounds accurate. And the nursing home emails? I have screenshots." Another pause. "Jesus." That was the exact word he used. Charles finally spoke again. "Do not confront them yet." I wasn't planning to. Good, because if we do this right, Tyler could be facing serious criminal charges. I leaned back in the chair, not because I wanted revenge, but because for the first time in 18 months, someone believed me. Charles continued, "Monday morning, 9 o'clock, my office. I'll be there. Until then, gather everything, document everything." I smiled slightly. That part I already finished. He chuckled. "Of course you did. 42 years of journalism doesn't disappear." Before hanging up, he added one more thing. "Richard, you're not the one in trouble here." That mattered more than he probably realized. Because sometimes when family gaslights you long enough, you start questioning your own reality. But the truth was finally clear. And once truth appears, it tends to spread. Monday morning, I woke up before sunrise. Not from anxiety, from clarity. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and wrote a simple list. Locksmith, bank, lawyer. 3 steps. 3 pieces of control I needed back. At 8:15, I made the first call. Valdez Locksmith. "Tony, this is Richard Halpern on Maple Street." A pause. "Richard, everything okay? I need every lock in my house replaced." Another pause. Tony had been working in our neighborhood for 30 years. People like Tony learn when not to ask questions. "What time works?" "Sooner is better." "I'll be there at 9. Perfect." After hanging up, I walked slowly through the house. Front door, back door, garage, basement, 4 entrances. 4 ways Tyler had been walking into my life like he owned it. That ended today. Some of you know that feeling. The moment when you stop tolerating disrespect and start restoring boundaries. At exactly 8:58, a white locksmith van pulled into the driveway. Tony stepped out carrying 2 heavy toolboxes. He looked at me once, then nodded. "Let's get your house back." And for the first time in 18 months, I felt something returning. Control. Tony worked quietly. The drill bit screamed against the old brass lock while metal dust fell onto the porch like tiny flakes of snow. I stood beside him holding the old deadbolt after he removed it. That lock had been there for 20 years. Margaret and I installed it ourselves one Saturday morning. Back when our biggest worry was whether Emily would pass her driving test, Tony dropped the new chrome deadbolt into place. "Try it," he said. I slid the key in, turned it, click. Smooth, solid, secure. Something about that sound felt deeper than a lock closing. It felt like a boundary returning. We moved through the rest of the house. Back door, garage entry, basement entrance. Each lock replaced. Each key turned. Each click felt like reclaiming a small piece of my life. By 10:40, the work was finished. Tony handed me a ring of fresh keys. 5 copies for each door, he said. Give one to someone you trust. I immediately thought of Charles. I paid Tony and added $200 extra. For discretion. Tony looked at the money, then at me. He didn't ask questions. Just nodded once. Take care of yourself, Richard. After he left, I walked through the house again. Front door. Click. Back door. Click. Garage. Click. Basement. Click. 4 locks. 20 keys. And suddenly the house didn't feel occupied anymore. It felt like mine again. Silence can be powerful. Stand with us. Changing the locks was only the first step. Physical control means nothing if legal control is slipping away. So the next place I went was the bank. Community First Bank on Oakwood Avenue. Margaret and I opened our first account there in 1983. The same branch that handled every paycheck I earned as a journalist. The same tellers who sent flowers when Margaret passed away. Walking inside that afternoon felt strangely heavy. Because I wasn't there as a customer. I was there as a victim. The branch manager, Linda Foster, recognized me immediately. Mr. Halpern, how can I help you today? I placed the red folder on her desk. I need to report identity theft. Her expression changed instantly. Please sit. I opened the folder and began laying out the documents. Credit card statements. Forged signatures. Transaction histories. Luxury purchases. $900 dinners. $1,200 electronics. Hotel stays I had never booked. Linda reviewed everything slowly. By the time she reached the last page, her jaw had tightened. This totals nearly $47,000. Yes. And you believe your son-in-law is responsible? I don't believe, I said quietly. I documented. Some of you know the difference. When truth stops being opinion and becomes evidence. Linda picked up the phone immediately. Fraud department, she said. We need to freeze an account. The process took nearly an hour. Linda contacted the fraud division. My card was frozen instantly. Every suspicious transaction flagged. Every charge under investigation. While she typed the report, she glanced at me carefully. Mr. Halpern, may I ask something? Of course. Does your daughter know about this? That question hit harder than any number on the statements. I stared at the table for a moment. I don't know, I admitted. And that's the part that worries me. Linda nodded slowly, because betrayal from strangers is expected. But betrayal from family, that's a different kind of wound. She printed the official fraud report and slid it across the desk. Keep this for your attorney. I smiled slightly. Already arranged. Good. Then she added something quietly. People underestimate older clients all the time. She tapped the stack of evidence. They usually regret it. I thanked her and walked out of the bank. The afternoon sun was beginning to sink toward the rooftops, and I realized something strange. For the first time in months, I wasn't anxious. I wasn't confused. I wasn't even angry. I was prepared. And when preparation meets truth, people who rely on deception start running out of options. By the time I returned home, it was 4:30. Emily and Tyler usually got back around 6. That gave me 90 minutes. 90 minutes to finish something that should have happened months earlier. I walked upstairs to the bedroom they had been using. The room used to be my home office. My desk once sat beside the window overlooking the maple trees. Now their bed filled the space. Tyler's expensive suits hung in my closet. Emily's nursing scrubs were folded on the chair. I opened the closet slowly and pulled out 4 suitcases. Blue Samsonites. I bought them for Emily last Christmas when she talked about taking a vacation. She never used them. I started packing. Tyler's suits first. Then shoes. Then his cologne, electronics, and expensive watches. Every item dropped into the suitcase without ceremony. Then I moved to Emily's side of the room. That part was harder. Her sweaters. Her nursing shoes. A scarf Margaret gave her years ago. I folded each item carefully. Because anger doesn't erase love. Even when trust breaks. In her nightstand I found a small photograph. Emily at 5 years old. Holding the stuffed bear I won for her at the county fair. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long moment staring at that picture. Some of you know that weight? The moment when protecting yourself means hurting someone you still love. But boundaries exist for a reason, and sometimes dignity requires painful decisions. By 5:30, the 4 suitcases were lined up by the front door, waiting, just like I was. At exactly 6:04 p.m., I heard the familiar sound of Tyler's truck pulling into the driveway. A few seconds later, Emily's car followed behind it. I stayed seated in Margaret's old armchair facing the front window. From there, I could see everything. Car doors closing, footsteps on the walkway, keys jingling. Then came the sound I had been waiting for. Metal sliding into a lock. A pause. A small, confused rattle. Then Tyler's voice. What the hell? Another attempt. More rattling. This key isn't working. Emily stepped closer. Let me try. Her key scraped the lock. Nothing. Silence for 2 seconds. Then Tyler tried again, harder this time. The doorknob shook. Richard, he called through the door. You in there? I didn't answer. Not yet. Outside I could see their shadows moving through the frosted glass. Confusion was slowly turning into irritation. Then suspicion. Maybe the lock jammed, Emily said. Tyler grunted. His car's in the driveway. Another violent twist of the key. Still nothing. Some of you recognize that moment. The moment when control slips away, and someone who thought they were in charge suddenly realizes they aren't. Tyler stepped back from the door. Come on, he said. Let's try the back. Their footsteps disappeared around the side of the house. I waited, because patience is often the most powerful move on the board. They reached the back door 2 minutes later. I could hear everything through the kitchen wall. More keys. More rattling. More frustration. Tyler, why aren't any of them working? I don't know. Then came the realization. The kind that arrives slowly. Like a door closing inside someone's mind. Tyler's voice lowered. That old man changed the locks. Silence. Emily's voice came next. What? The locks, he said again. He changed them. Her confusion turned into something closer to fear. But why would he do that? Tyler didn't answer. Instead, he walked back around to the front of the house. 30 seconds later, the pounding started. Heavy. Violent. The entire doorframe shook. Richard. His fist slammed the wood again. Open the damn door! Across the street, I noticed something through the window. Barbara Peterson pulling back her curtain. Neighbors always notice when shouting starts. Another loud bang. You can't lock us out. Emily's voice trembled behind him. Tyler, calm down. But he wasn't calm anymore. Men like Tyler don't react well when power disappears. He slammed the door again. Open this door right now. I glanced at the clock. 6:18 p.m. 14 minutes since they arrived. 14 minutes of pressure. More than enough. So I stood up, walked slowly to the door, and unlocked it. But only 6 inches. The security chain stayed firmly in place. When the door opened, Tyler froze. His eyes dropped immediately to the chain, then back to my face. Shock, confusion, anger, all in about 2 seconds. What did you do to the locks? He demanded. I kept my voice calm. Good evening, Tyler. Emily stepped closer behind him. Dad, what's going on? I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. Her eyes were tired. Worried. For a moment, she looked exactly like the 5-year-old girl who used to run into my arms after school. Then I spoke. I know about the credit cards. The words landed like a stone dropped into water. Tyler blinked. What are you talking about? $46,000, I continued. Restaurants, hotels, shopping. Emily turned slowly toward her husband. Tyler? He laughed nervously. See? This is what I've been telling you about. He's confused. I raised a folder and slid one document through the gap in the door. It landed on the porch. Emily picked it up. Her eyes scanned the page. Her breathing changed instantly. Tyler, this is your email. His expression tightened. Let me explain. You were contacting a nursing home? She said. Her voice cracked. You told them my dad had dementia? Tyler looked at me with pure hatred. You shouldn't have looked through my computer. I met his stare calmly. You shouldn't have committed fraud. Silence filled the porch. Some of you know that moment, when the truth finally walks into the room, and nobody can pretend anymore. Tyler snapped first. You're twisting things, he said sharply. You need help. That's what this was about. I held up another sheet of paper. Then explain the power of attorney paperwork. Emily looked at it. Her face drained of color. You were going to make him sign this? Tyler's patience broke. You don't understand, he shouted. This house is worth $800,000. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Ugly. Emily stared at him. What did you just say? Tyler realized too late what he had revealed. That's not what I meant. You were waiting for my father to die, she said. No, but the money would be ours anyway. The silence afterward felt enormous. Some of you recognize that sound. The moment a relationship breaks beyond repair. Emily stepped backward like the ground beneath her had shifted. Tyler, you stole from him? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Across the street, Barbara Peterson had stepped fully onto her porch now. Watching. Witnesses matter. Tyler turned back toward me with fury. This isn't over. No, I said calmly. It's finished. Then I closed the door, locked the new deadbolt, and waited, because the next part of the story was about to arrive with flashing lights. At 6:42 p.m., the police cruisers arrived. 2 of them, red and blue lights painting the houses along Maple Street. Tyler had called them. That much was obvious. Outside, I could hear him talking loudly. He's having some kind of breakdown. He locked us out of our own home. I opened the door again when the officers knocked, this time without the chain. The older officer introduced himself. Officer Daniels. The younger one stood beside him quietly. Sir, Daniels said politely, are you the homeowner? I am. I handed him the property deed, paid in full. Then I handed him the fraud report from the bank, and the email printouts. For 5 full minutes he read the documents in silence. Then he looked up at Tyler. His expression had changed. Completely. Mr. Halpern is the legal owner of this property, he said. Tyler stepped forward. That old man is senile. Daniels held up a hand. Sir, based on these documents, you may actually be facing charges of financial fraud and elder abuse. Tyler went quiet. Very quiet. Emily stood on the sidewalk crying softly. Daniels pointed toward the 4 suitcases by the door. I suggest you collect your belongings and leave. The humiliation on Tyler's face was impossible to hide. But truth has a way of doing that. Exposing people. In front of everyone. Tyler threw the first suitcase into the truck like it had personally offended him. The metal frame slammed against the truck bed with a hollow crash that echoed down Maple Street. He grabbed the second one without looking at anyone. Not at the police. Not at the neighbors watching from their porches. And definitely not at me. People who spend their lives pretending to be powerful hate moments like this. Moments where the truth removes the mask. Across the sidewalk, Emily still hadn't moved. She stood there, staring at the 2 remaining suitcases like she didn't recognize them. Or maybe she didn't recognize the life she had been living. Officer Daniels glanced at her gently. Ma'am, you'll need to collect the rest of your belongings. Emily nodded slowly. Her hands trembled as she picked up the 3rd suitcase. Then the 4th. She carried them toward the truck, each step slower than the last. Right before she opened the passenger door, she turned back and looked at me. Not with anger, not with accusation, with something heavier. Regret. Dad, she said quietly. Just one word. But some of you know how heavy a single word can be. 38 years of memories can live inside one breath. For a moment I almost stepped forward. Almost. But some lines, once crossed, can't simply be walked back. So I stayed where I was, standing in the doorway of the house I had built with my own hands. Emily wiped her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. And the strange thing is, I believed her. The truck engine started a few seconds later. Tyler didn't say a word. He just drove. And just like that, the people who had slowly taken over my life were gone. By 8 o'clock, the street had gone quiet again. The police cruisers were gone. The neighbors drifted back inside their homes. But I knew the phone calls were happening behind those walls. Maple Street had just witnessed a story, and stories travel fast. I closed the front door slowly. The new deadbolt turned with a smooth click. That sound felt different now. Not defensive, protective. For the first time in 18 months, I walked through the house without feeling like a guest. The living room came first. Margaret's chair. The television. The small scratch in the hardwood floor where Emily once dropped a toy truck when she was 4 years old. Funny how houses remember everything. In the kitchen, Tyler's expensive coffee mug sat in the sink. The one with the motivational quote about winning big. I washed it, dried it, and placed it gently inside a cardboard donation box. No anger, just removal. His sneakers by the back door went next. Then his jacket. Every object leaving the house felt like reclaiming a piece of space. A piece of air. At 8:45, I opened the refrigerator and actually looked at what was inside. For months, I had been eating whatever was easiest, whatever kept the peace. But tonight I cooked. Pasta, butter, garlic. Simple food. Margaret used to make it when life felt heavy. The smell filled the kitchen. Warm, familiar, human. And as I sat at the dining table eating quietly, I realized something. Peace doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it just sits down beside you. If you're listening tonight, tell me something. Would you have opened that door earlier? Or would you have waited exactly the way I did? Ending. Around 10 that night, I finally reconnected the television cable, the same one Tyler had ripped out of the wall. It took about 30 seconds. Funny how simple things are when nobody is trying to control them. The documentary came back on. The historian's calm voice filled the living room again. Ships, battles, stories of men who faced impossible situations and kept moving anyway. I leaned back in Margaret's chair and let the quiet settle around me. Real quiet. Not the tense silence of walking on eggshells, but the kind that belongs to you. On the table beside me sat a framed photograph. Margaret and I. Niagara Falls. She was laughing at something I had said. I picked up the photo. You always told me I was too patient, I said softly. Margaret used to believe patience was my weakness. But patience isn't weakness. Patience is timing. And timing changes everything. Some of you listening tonight understand that feeling. When people underestimate you, when they think age means softness, or silence means surrender. But dignity has a strange way of waiting for the right moment. And when that moment arrives, everything shifts. Before we end tonight's story, tell me something. Where are you listening from? Drop your city in the comments. Stories like this travel farther than we realize. And if this one reminded you that quiet strength still matters, then stand with us. Because the truth is simple. Strength doesn't beg, it builds. Subscribe and stand for dignity. And remember this, the calm ones often win last.